South Florida's housing market isn't slowing down. It's collapsing in real time. Behind the palm trees and sunshine, something's breaking. During the pandemic, home prices here jumped 60 to 80%. Families poured in, investors followed, and the boom felt unstoppable. But in 2025, that story has flipped. More than 275,000 people are now projected to leave Florida this year alone, the sharpest exodus since the Great Recession. Insurance bills are hitting $12,000 a year. Home values are sliding downward. Mortgage payments have literally doubled since 2021. They said Florida was forever, but South Florida is burning first. Take Rodney Chin, a homeowner in Miramar. He's lived there for years, never once saw floodwater touch his driveway. Then one day, a letter arrived. His house was reclassified into a special flood hazard area. Now he's staring at $3,000 a year in mandatory flood insurance on top of his $12,000 property insurance bill. That's $15,000 a year just to keep the lights on in a house the market says is worth less every month. And he's not alone. 275,000 people don't just leave paradise by accident. New migration data reveals something Florida hasn't seen since 2008. The once celebrated population boom has slammed into reverse. In 2025 alone, more than 275,000 people are expected to leave the state, the sharpest outflow in over a decade. Miami-Dade County stands to lose more than 67,000 residents on its own. Broward and Palm Beach combined are projected to shed another 33,000. The root cause? Money. During the pandemic, home prices in Florida jumped an astonishing 60 to 80% in many cities. But those rapid gains are now evaporating. In Cape Coral and Naples, median sale prices have already dropped between $40,000 and $75,000 from their peaks. Statewide, the median home value now sits at $412,734, a 4% decline year over year. That's the steepest fall since 2011. Miami-Dade is losing 67,000 residents this year alone. Meanwhile, the monthly mortgage math has turned brutal. A $350,000 loan at 3% interest used to cost about $1,475 a month. Today, at 7%. That same loan costs more than $2,300. That's an extra $820 each month. A financial gut punch for first-time buyers, and a savings drain for anyone who bought at the top of the market. And for older Floridians living on fixed incomes, the pain doesn't stop there. Insurance premiums have exploded. Statewide, the average property insurance bill is now $3,023 a year, up 34% in just 12 months. In coastal markets, annual premiums routinely top $8,000. Some homeowners are facing quotes of $12,000 or more. In Fort Lauderdale, the insurance bill on a typical home can now rival the mortgage payment itself. As these costs spiral, homes are stacking up unsold. Active listings across Florida are up 34% compared to last year. There are now more than 177,000 properties on the market, a figure that's more than double the entire inventory of the northeastern United States. In Naples, inventory surged another 34%, while new listings actually declined. That's proof that homes already for sale are simply sitting untouched. In Cape Coral, the picture is even starker. More than 12,000 homes are currently on the market. Sellers are being forced to slash prices, dangle cash incentives, or even cover closing costs out of pocket just to attract a buyer. More than half of all listings in Cape Coral have had at least one price cut. And investors? They're heading for the exits. Institutional purchases, which once made up more than 25% of Florida home sales, have now plunged below 6%. Rental yields are collapsing. In Palm Bay, average rents dropped 12% in just 1 year. Vacancy rates keep climbing. In short-term rental hotspots like Punta Gorda and Cape Coral, properties that once sold for $675,000 now struggle to find buyers even at $500,000. Some investors are swallowing $100,000 losses just to escape. But the exodus? That's only half the story. Let's rewind. How did paradise become a prison? The unraveling of Florida's housing market isn't just about falling prices. Insurance chaos and new flood zone rules are compounding the crisis, making homeownership more expensive and more uncertain than ever before. Back in 2022, 6 major insurance companies went under. Their collapse forced hundreds of thousands of Floridians to rely on Citizens Property Insurance Corporation, the state-run backstop that was never designed to shoulder this kind of burden. Today, Citizens is the largest carrier in the state, now holding more than 800,000 active policies for homeowners. The consequences are staggering. Nearly 89,000 properties in Broward County alone were swept into mandatory flood zones after FEMA rolled out its revised flood maps. That single policy shift means tens of thousands of families were suddenly required to buy additional flood insurance, bills that often run $1,500 to $3,000 a year, stacked on top of their already soaring premiums. In Miramar and Pembroke Pines, the impact has been especially harsh. Combined, more than 47,000 homes were reclassified into high-risk flood zones. Longtime residents who never once saw floodwaters on their streets suddenly found themselves forced to buy new coverage or face penalties from their lenders. 6 insurers collapsed in a single year. Guess who's holding the bag now? The story is just as punishing in other Broward communities. In Pembroke Pines, more than 22,000 properties were thrown into high-risk categories. Hollywood added more than 7,000. Even smaller cities like Dania Beach saw 3,500 parcels shifted into mandatory coverage zones. Tamarack, though less exposed than its neighbors, now faces mounting anxiety as residents watch their premiums spike. And the math is crushing. For families with federally backed mortgages, there's no way around it. Proof of flood coverage must be provided within 30 days. If not, lenders force-place policies at astronomical rates, leaving homeowners with bills they can't control. Under FEMA's risk rating 2.0 system, annual flood insurance increases are capped at 18%, but that cap compounds every single year until premiums hit their full risk price. In other words, even if you can afford today's bill, tomorrow's will almost certainly be higher. The flood zone reclassifications are landing on top of already devastating property insurance premiums. In Miami-Dade County, some homeowners now report bills topping $15,000 per year. Across the state, average premiums have jumped more than 30% in just 12 months, with annual increases of 18% quickly becoming the norm. For many households, insurance now costs as much as the mortgage itself. The combined effect is forcing impossible choices. Families are cashing out and leaving. Retirees are selling to avoid assessments. Buyers are walking away at the closing table when final quotes land. What was once paradise is now a financial minefield. But insurance was just the warm-up act. Take a family in Cape Coral. They bought their dream home in 2022 for $675,000. It felt like the perfect move. Waterfront access, sunshine year-round, a booming local economy. They locked in a mortgage at 4%. Everything seemed fine. Then the bills started coming. First, their property insurance doubled from $4,000 to $8,000 a year. Then their home was reclassified into a flood zone. That added another $12,500 annually. Next, their HOA raised fees to cover infrastructure repairs. Then, property taxes climbed. By late 2024, their total monthly carrying costs had ballooned to $8,800, $2,300 for the mortgage, $4,000 for insurance, $2,500 for flood coverage, and the rest in taxes and fees. They decided to sell. They listed at $600,000, hoping to at least break even. No offers. They dropped to $550,000. Still nothing. Then $500,000. After 6 months on the market, they finally got a lowball offer at $475,000. They took it. After closing costs, realtor fees, and what they still owed on the mortgage, they walked away with nothing. Worse than nothing, they're losing nearly $100,000 just to escape. And the thing is, South Florida isn't even the worst of it anymore. Texas and Arizona are next, and they don't even know it yet. The warning signs in Florida aren't stopping at the state line. In Austin, active listings jumped 13% over the past year. In Dallas-Fort Worth, the surge was even worse. Inventory climbed 31%. Houston and San Antonio posted gains of 24% and 16%. Across Texas, more than 123,000 homes are now on the market, 53% higher than average and the largest supply in over a decade. Price cuts are spreading fast. In Dallas, 34% of listings have been reduced. In Austin and San Antonio, it's over 30%. Statewide, nearly 28% of all homes saw at least one price drop in April alone. Arizona is cooling even faster. Greater Phoenix home prices are down nearly 7% from their 2022 peak. The average property now sits unsold for 79 days. Active listings in Phoenix climbed past 25,000 in July, a 36% year-over-year surge. New listings are falling, but homes are lingering unsold. It's an echo of Florida's inventory glut. South Florida was the canary. Now, it's the blueprint for collapse. Across the Sun Belt, inventory to sales ratios have stretched to 9 to 12 months. Pending sales cancellations are climbing toward 15% in San Antonio, Memphis, and Jacksonville. Buyer activity has dropped by double digits. Zillow's own heat index now shows demand weakening in every major metro that boomed during the pandemic. With mortgage rates holding near 7%, buyers suddenly hold the upper hand. Sellers who once dictated terms are now forced to negotiate. The power has shifted. Here's what everyone's missing. This isn't just Florida. It's not just about insurance or flood maps or condo assessments. It's about what happens when affordability collapses and no one can carry the cost anymore. Florida was just early. The same mechanics, soaring insurance, stretched affordability, institutional investor retreat, are now playing out in Texas, Arizona, Nevada, and beyond. The Sunbelt boom has turned into the Sunbelt bust. But here's the part no one's talking about yet. South Florida's condo market is in its own free fall, reshaped by new reserve mandates, soaring assessments, and insurance bills that rival monthly mortgages. It all started with the Surfside collapse in 2021, which killed 98 people and sent shockwaves through Florida real estate. In the aftermath, lawmakers rushed through sweeping reforms. Senate Bill 4D, followed by Senate Bill 154, made reserve funding and structural integrity studies mandatory for every condo building 3 stories or higher. The deadlines are now looming, and the costs are devastating. Owners in older towers are being hit with special assessments ranging from $20,000 to $80,000 per unit, often due within a single year. Monthly HOA fees have spiked past $650 in many buildings, turning what once felt like affordable coastal living into a financial nightmare. In Pompano Beach, median condo prices have slid nearly 8% since early 2024. The average sale now closes around $282,000, down from $370,000 just 18 months ago. Listings have surged 44% year over year, with 29% of active units already showing at least one price reduction. And buyers, they've grown wary. Lenders now demand completed reserve studies and proof of structural repairs before approving mortgages. Buildings flagged as non-warrantable due to insufficient reserves or pending assessments can only be sold to cash buyers. In Fort Lauderdale, the median condo now lingers on the market for 93 days, more than double last year's pace. Sales volume has dropped 21%, shrinking the buyer pool even further. Insurance premiums, already among the highest in the nation, are now paired with mandatory reserve contributions that push total monthly costs above $12,300 for many 2-bedroom units. To entice offers, some sellers are paying a year's worth of HOA dues or covering upcoming assessments up front. Desperate moves just to get a contract signed. They called it the Sunshine State. Now it's the sunk cost state. Port St. Lucie, once a haven for affordable condos, is also under heavy pressure. Associations there have tripled monthly fees in some complexes and slapped on assessments averaging $12,000 to $30,000. Condo prices have fallen more than 7% year over year, while sales volume has dropped nearly 25%. Units that sold for $240,000 in 2022 are now listed closer to $215,000 and still attract few takers. Inventory has doubled, and cancellations are piling up as buyers back out after reviewing association budgets. West Palm Beach is seeing the same distress at a higher scale. Older high-rises are flooding the market as owners scramble to exit before the next round of bills. The average special assessment tied to reserve studies now sits at $38,000 per unit, with some luxury towers demanding 6-figure lump sums. Median condo prices in West Palm have dropped 6.2% since last spring, while listings are up 54%. Buyers discount properties in buildings facing uncertain repairs by 10% or more. Even St. Petersburg, once a magnet for out-of-state investors, is posting its sharpest condo downturn in a decade. Sales are down 23% year over year, and more than one-third of listings have seen at least one price cut. Assessments between $15,000 and $60,000 per unit, plus rising flood designations along the bayfront, are scaring off new buyers. The math is brutal for many owners. Combined costs of mortgage, insurance, reserves, and assessments now exceed what their property is worth. For buyers, every building comes with a warning label, and only those with full reserves and completed repairs can command full value. Take a condo owner in Pompano Beach. She bought her two-bedroom unit in early 2023 for $370,000. It was her first major investment, a retirement plan, a place to call home. The HOA fees were $350 a month, manageable. Her mortgage was $1,800. Insurance was $4,500 a year. She could handle it. Then the letters started arriving. First, the HOA announced a special assessment, $38,000 per unit, due in 60 days to fund reserve studies and structural repairs mandated by the new state law. She didn't have $38,000 sitting in a savings account. She tried to get a loan, declined. She reached out to the HOA for a payment plan, denied. Then her HOA fees jumped from $350 a month to $650, an 86% increase. Her insurance renewed at $6,200, up from $4,500. Her flood zone designation changed, another $2,400 a year. She decided to sell. She listed at $350,000, hoping to at least recover most of her down payment. No offers. She dropped to $320,000, then $295,000. Finally, after 8 months on the market, she accepted an offer at $282,000. After realtor fees, closing costs, and what she still owed, she walked away with nothing. Not a single dollar of equity. She's renting now, trying to rebuild. She's not alone. Thousands of condo owners across South Florida are trapped in the same nightmare. Buildings they can't afford to keep, buyers who won't touch them, and assessments that keep coming. Cape Coral isn't alone anymore. Punta Gorda, once the picture of affordable waterfront living, is now posting some of South Florida's sharpest declines. Single-family home prices are down 7.3% year over year, while condo prices have plunged more than 11%, the steepest condo drop of any major Florida market. Properties built in the 1980s and 90s now sit on the market for more than 120 days. Sellers $40,000 to $60,000 just to secure a single offer. Investor-owned homes are flooding listings, and short-term rental income has cratered. Over the past year, more than 20% of investor properties have been dumped on the market, many sold at double-digit losses. Palm Bay tells a similar story. Developers there once bet big on the Space Coast boom. Today, over 3,200 unsold homes clog the market. Prices for new builds, which peaked at $385,000 in late 2022, have tumbled to an average of $328,000, a 15% slide in under 3 years. Builders are throwing everything at the wall. $40,000 price cuts, $25,000 cash incentives, even temporary mortgage rate buydowns. But demand is thin. Median incomes can't support monthly payments pushing $2,500 once taxes and insurance are added. Rental yields have slipped below 4.5%. Average rents are down 12% in a year, and vacancy rates keep climbing in sprawling subdivisions. Northport, another pandemic-era hotspot, is caught in the same downdraft. Single-family homes are down 5% year over year, while condos are off nearly 9%. The city's explosive growth has outpaced infrastructure, leaving many developments saddled with high costs and limited services. Insurance rates now top $4,000 annually, while rising property taxes make carrying costs even heavier. Sellers are cutting $30,000 or more just to compete. Lakeland has the highest foreclosure rate in America, 1 in every 172 homes. Wedged between Tampa and Orlando, Lakeland leads the entire nation in foreclosure rates. One filing for every 172 homes in 2024. That's more than double the U.S. average. Home values are falling fast, and analysts now label Lakeland at very high risk for further price declines. The foreclosure wave is feeding on itself. Distressed sales push values lower, dragging more homeowners underwater, triggering even more defaults. Investors who bought during the frenzy are now racing to unload properties before values collapse further. And then there's Cape Coral, the epicenter of Florida's housing unraveling. Prices in the Cape Coral-Fort Myers metro are down 11% in just 2 years, the steepest decline of any major U.S. city. More than half of all listings in Cape Coral have had at least one price cut. Nearly 8% of homeowners are underwater, owing more than their houses are worth. That's the highest rate in the country. Inventory has exploded, with roughly 12,000 homes now for sale. Properties that sold for $675,000 just 3 years ago are struggling to fetch $500,000 today. Investors who banked on short-term rental profits are slashing $100,000 or more just to get out. Local agents describe a market where income simply can't keep up with costs. For many families, the only way out is to sell at a loss or walk away entirely. Cape Coral has become ground zero, the clearest warning yet that Florida's pandemic housing boom has turned into a bust. So what does this mean for you? For buyers in 2025, this is a rare moment. Inventory is at record highs, sellers are slashing prices, and buyers have more leverage than at any point in the last 5 years. But leverage doesn't mean safety. Lower sticker prices are only part of the equation. Carrying costs, insurance, property taxes, flood coverage, and HOA dues can tack on an extra $800 to $1,500 a month on top of the mortgage. For older buyers or anyone on a fixed income, those extras can turn a deal into a trap. Due diligence is no longer optional. In the condo market, every buyer needs to review association budgets and reserve studies before signing anything. Buildings facing looming repairs or underfunded reserves can drain savings with surprise assessments in flood-prone suburbs. Verifying the exact flood zone and getting quotes for both property and flood insurance can mean the difference between affordability and financial ruin. Investors face their own risks. Rental yields are falling, vacancy rates are rising. Cash flow models need to be rebuilt with higher insurance costs and weaker rents. A property that looks like a bargain at closing can turn into a liability if the downturn drags on. And buyers? They think they're getting a deal. The smartest move in 2025 isn't just hunting for a discount. It's making sure the numbers work long after the ink dries on the contract. That means demanding concessions, seller-paid rate buydowns, closing cost credits, even a year of HOA dues covered up front. It means negotiating harder than ever, because in today's market, patience is rewarded, and tomorrow's price will likely be lower. Here's what everyone's missing. By the end of 2024, South Florida was already cracking under the pressure. Inventory surged 34% year over year, with more than 177,000 homes now listed for sale, more than double the entire Northeast at the same time. Projections pointed to an exodus unlike anything since the Great Recession. More than 275,000 residents are expected to leave Florida in 2025. Miami-Dade alone is forecast to lose over 67,000 people. Broward and Palm Beach together are set to lose more than 33,000. Families, retirees, and investors alike are packing up, citing unmanageable carrying costs and the collapse of affordability. The evidence is written across 15 cities. Documented price drops, insurance premiums jumping from $8,000 to $12,000 a year, investor activity collapsing from over 25% of sales to less than 6%, and a wave of flood zone reclassifications and condo reserve mandates that piled thousands more dollars onto already strained households. The documentary record shows exactly what triggered this reversal. FEMA's revised flood maps added nearly 89,000 properties in Broward County to mandatory coverage. New condo reserve laws forced assessments of $20,000 to $80,000 per unit. 6 major insurers failed in 2022, driving millions of homeowners into Citizens, the state's last resort insurer. And across the board, mortgage rates near 7% doubled monthly payments since 2021. The result is not just a correction, it's a sharp contraction, one that has already spread into other Sunbelt states in 2024 and 2025. Cape Coral, Naples, Palm Bay, Pompano Beach, Hollywood, and Fort Myers became ground zero. Median sale prices fell $40,000 to $75,000 from their peaks. Homes that once commanded $675,000 now struggled to find a buyer at $500,000. Condo units that sold for $240,000 in 2022 sit at $215,000 today, with few takers. Florida's affordability ranking has collapsed to 49th in the nation. For families on fixed incomes, carrying costs of mortgage, insurance, flood coverage, and HOA fees routinely add $800 to $1,500 per month. For investors, rental yields under 4.5% no longer cover expenses. For sellers, equity built over years has been erased in months, and yet, the long-term effects remain uncertain. Legislative reforms are still under review. Some flood maps may be revised again. Not all records on insurer withdrawals or condo board finances have been made public. What is certain? Florida's housing market has shifted. The boom years are over. What began as a pandemic-era migration wave has ended in the state's sharpest contraction in over a decade, and the ripple effects in Texas, Arizona, and across the Sun Belt show that Florida's housing unraveling is more than a local story. Texas, Arizona, Nevada, they're all watching the same storm roll in. South Florida was just the beginning. Subscribe so you don't miss the next shocking chapter.